And that's it. Don't no more specific than that.
In 2022, we redacted from redacted, and we just wanted to say redacted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, excellent.
Sounds great.
Don't say we.
I'm confused.
Excellent. Okay.
Oh.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Janchi Show. It's your boys, KJ, Nathan, Patrick, coming at you with the second episode of the new year. How you doing, fellas?
And technically the first of the Lunar New Year.
Oh, you're not wrong. Yes. Happy Year of the Rabbit. Or Year of the Not Rabbit, if to any
/cat.
Of our Vietnamese listeners.
Yes.
I just found that out on Sunday that they're not in the same cycle. I guess I don't know. I don't know.
We found that out when I was in DC. Weird. That's weird. Also found that out.
Yeah,
all right.
I found out via social media. So hey,
yeah,
so
we all have our ways.
I guess we all
we're all learning. Yeah.
We all have people who are more informed than us who are telling us.
Knowing is half the battle.
Knowing is half the battle.
Remembering is the other half. So, how you doing, guys?
Great. Enjoying. Did you guys? I saw you celebrated a little the New Year, KJ, on with some friends.
It was great. We got to hang out with previous guests, Jennifer Holcomb Patel and Stephanie Drenka, who are both local. We actually would have had some others, but they had to drop out due to sickness or just life events and things. It was really, really fun. It was nice to be able to celebrate and just be like, I don't know, watch the Cowboys lose and just be like, the Cowboys. So it felt very right and appropriate. Even in the midst
losing
of
or
no, just the whole gathering. I mean, also kind of them losing, but it wasn't fun per se. But I was like, yeah, that tracks. It just was nice to be in that space. I think, especially given what happened in Monterey Park, just to be with Asian Americans and adoptees who are like on the other side of their revelations, and we could just be there, and it didn't have to be a thing. All our partners understand, it didn't have to be a thing. It was allowed to be a thing. But mostly we were just there to gather and there to enjoy each other's company. And it was really nice. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, I was jealous. It looked like a good time. What about you, Patrick? What'd you do?
I didn't really do anything.
Did you eat dokuk?
I did not. I failed in my stated mission to achieve that which I had not achieved yet in the previous 2 years of the show.
At some point in your life, you're going to make it, and you'll be like, I don't know why I put making this off for so long. It's so easy and so good.
Easy. Yeah, it is. Next year, I'm going to send you a recipe, the one that I made this year.
Next year, I'm going to come over to your house
5
and
ingredients,
make it for you.
And
yes,
you'll be good.
I like what KJ said. Nathan, I will accept your recipe gift, but I will also accept
I'll
KJ
accept it for you, and then be like,
okay.
all right, Nathan sent this, and I'm here to cook it for you.
Nice.
I
appreciate that.
Man.
Thank you for helping me out. No, I didn't really do anything. I was traveling last week for some Dear Asian Americans events, and felt like that was kind of my Lunar New Year celebration. All week in Boston and DC, we were doing things that were about celebrating the community. So I was able to see a bunch of friends, some adoptee friends in both cities, which was really nice. And then Sunday, I just felt really tired from travel. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm ready to just be home and hang out with my wife. And then, waking up to Monterey Park and being like, okay, everything's terrible. Why can there never just be the one day where things are just good?
Chill.
And it's just, when something objectively terrible is not happening. So it was that. So I didn't really do anything. We just watched movies, and just generally I just kind of sat in the kind of fallout of what was going on there and doom scrolling and all of that. But what did you do? Did you have plans or celebrations that you were doing?
So I made like I said, I was going to make.
Hey,
but
we get
He
it.
did
I
what he
didn't do
said
I
he was
said I was
going
gonna
to
make it,
do. He's a
and
man
so-
of his word.
What I told you guys, I think, last week or prior to making it is, I just wanted to make it just because here's one of the things that I enjoy is watching my kids eat it. And I don't know what it is about that. Allison, my wife, asked me about why do I enjoy making it for my kids, or why do I enjoy watching my kids eat it? And I really think that I'm watching them eat it and them enjoying it. And I just like providing something that's part of their culture that I didn't get to experience myself as a kid.
You're redoing your childhood vicariously through your children, kind of.
And then watching them
almost
appreciate
reincarnation.
Yeah. In a way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
also making new traditions,
Yeah.
so watching them expect it maybe now every year. Because when I brought it out, my son goes, "Oh, this is my favorite soup." It's not really his favorite soup, but he was just saying it's his favorite soup because,
Wait, what's his favorite soup, really?
Honestly, I don't know.
Campbell's chunky soup.
Probably no. Actually,
Yeah.
it's probably just a regular udon, like just a Japanese udon. Yeah, with regular broth. That's probably his favorite. But actually, no. Sorry, I take that back. It's pho. Yeah, he really loves pho. He's eaten
pho.
He's eaten an
Acceptable.
adult-sized bowl of pho before.
Yes.
Acceptable.
Yeah. But so yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy that aspect. And then my wife also asked me because I sent a picture of it to my biological family in Korea. It's like, hey, Happy New Year, and here's some soup that I made. They're probably thinking, oh, this is very common, no big deal. But at the same time, I'm wondering if they actually think it's kind of cool seeing me as someone who wasn't raised in this culture make it and try to re-experience it.
Did they respond to your picture?
Yeah, they just said, things like happy, healthy, life. We're so happy that you're doing well, and Happy New Year and all that stuff. It's traditional kind of things, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I enjoy that part of it. So
Yeah.
are you guys going to start any new like a New Year's tradition that you have of your Lunar New Year tradition, I guess?
I mean, for me, it's just that, if knowing's half the battle and remembering's the other half of the battle, it's the remembering bit that is important to me. I was just saying, I was like, I got to get used to all the Korean traditions and the rhythm of Korean traditions in my life. Like, I'm the same way. I love tteokguk. I think it's delicious. It's a dish that I look forward to. And it is really special because we do have it at New Year's and or Lunar New Year. So it's, so I look forward to that. I look forward to just having that be a rhythm in my life. It's already a special soup. But I just got to remember like what to do. I think Lunar New Year is easier than like Chuseok because like many other cultures celebrate Lunar New Year. And so like there's more general hoopla in the broader American culture. Whereas Chuseok is pretty specific, I think, to South Korea, even if like other cultures have harvest festivals, they're not necessarily at the same time or the same, whatever. So, it's a nice rhythm for me.
And you hung out with Jennifer, and you said Stephanie too, but didn't you hang out last year with Jennifer also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's another bit of like, I'm not like, that's not like it's like, it is a tradition. It's not something that like we're holding fast to, but I think there is a sense of like adoptee family and Korean adoptee family that we get to grow, and we have the privilege of being okay. It's been like both of us be like, well, I don't know, like just figuring it out, which I think is fun. And even sometimes like with my own family, I would feel more pressure to like be the expert or be more learned. And with the Patels, like, when all of us gather, it's just like, I don't know, we're just figuring out, and we're going to eat foods we like. And there's like no pressure to know anything or to do anything. It's just nice.
That is nice.
So I also have another little small story. So when I sent to you guys, I just said Happy Lunar New Year, even though, the circumstances and, of course it was I was talking about the negative stories or the horrible story from Monterey Park and everything. But that was prior to the rest of the day. And we went sledding. And unfortunately, during our sledding adventure, my eldest son went headfirst into a bush and almost lost an eye.
No.
Almost lost an eye.
It missed his eye by about an inch, and it scraped right through his the top of his ear and his head, and had to go to the hospital. We didn't know if it was going to be stitches or just glue or something like that, but he was there for 3 hours. So that was the remaining portion of our Lunar New Year. Was unfortunately a trip to the hospital.
Dang.
But yeah.
Well, at least he didn't get sick.
He didn't get sick, and he's okay. He didn't lose an eye, didn't lose an ear. He's good.
Yeah.
He was very brave about it. He just has a gash on his forehead or his above his ear right now.
Got a
So was he sledding on? Was he like belly
Head
down?
First. Yeah, head first, and he couldn't stop.
Belly down.
And I was at least 10 feet away, and I couldn't get to him to help stop him, and he just went boom right into the bush.
Ugh,
yeah,
man.
So
that happens. Got to wear goggles.
Or learn to jump off the sled, I think, too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're not going to jump off the sled, get them goggles on. It helps. I swear. I forgot what we were doing. But this is an intro to an episode, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, no, we have a great interview today.
So, yeah. Do you want to introduce our guest, sort of, or preview the interview, Patrick?
Yeah, I'll preview the interview by saying that the conversation we just had is kind of like the conversations we have in this interview. They're far-ranging. They're kind of all over the place, but our guest is an excellent, eloquent storyteller. He shares a lot of everything that he's got going on in his life, and I thought that he was really, really generous with his story. Really excited to be able to share that. Jonah Nigh is our guest. You might recognize him from a little show called Baking It. Is that the show name?
Yes. But also, perfect. I don't know if you would recognize him because you don't necessarily see his face unless you look at the show art. But
well, if
yeah,
he's
a semi-finalist.
Yeah, if you've watched the show, then you would recognize him. But if you haven't watched the show, then you may have not.
Yep. So Baking It is an American bake-off competition on Peacock. He was on season 1. It's very Christmas themed. So maybe like if you're not really feeling like festive, just watch the highlights and stuff. But he gets into a lot of his adoption story on that show. And so we talked to him a little bit about that and what's going on. Oh, my cat just came in. That's why the door opened. So yeah, we get into that and more. And yeah, like you said, Patrick, he was just so generous with his story. And I think all three of us at some point looked up and realized 50 minutes had passed. And we were like, oh, we need to cut because this is a long episode, but it's just so engaging and so fun.
Could have talked forever. Yeah, Jonah was absolutely. Very, very great, gracious and a lot of fun. So really enjoyed
we're
that
excited for you to hear the interview. So without further ado, we're going to roll that tape.
Roll it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the interview portion of the Janchi Show. We have with us today very special guest. Gosh dang it! This is classic Janchi. Jonah, how do you say your last name?
Don't overthink it. It's English. Nigh.
Nigh. Okay. It's not even. I was just American. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, is it name? Yeah. I was like adding letters into it, but it's fine. Jonah Nigh. Jonah, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for making this podcast in general. I wish I knew guys like you growing up.
Oh, I also wish I knew guys like my co-host growing up. That would have been really fantastic.
We said that last episode too. Yeah,
ask me in an hour if I feel that way.
All right. That's honest. You're allowed to
he just cuts out at 20 minutes. He's just
like,
gone.
You know what?
Like Jonah hated us and he left. So we're going to complete this episode in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. I famously said I want nothing to do with you.
That would be, it would be a pretty big episode, I think. People would listen.
You'd be like,
I think so.
Why did they post that?
Right?
Why did they choose to air that one?
Controversy.
Well, to be fair, we're not as funny as Andy Samberg and Maya Rudolph. So
we'll get there.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Foreshadow alert. Jonah, we're gonna kick this off the way that we kick off all of our interviews and ask you to tell us your story.
Sure. So I thought I would just sort of outline, times in my life where race and ethnicity have surfaced the most prominently, and then you can dig in wherever. My life's pretty much an open book at this point, having cried on TV, making cookies, talking about my adoption story on NBC. So I'll just give sort of a basic sketch. And this could be one of your shortest intros yet, since my relationship to my Korean heritage is summed up as basically zero. Typical of the late 70s, my records were sealed. It was a completely closed adoption. So I was born in San Francisco in 1979 and almost immediately placed by Catholic Charities into a home. My older sister is also adopted, but she was born in Korea around 76. And then my younger brother, who passed away recently during the worst of COVID, is biological to my parents. So my parents, my mom they're both white. My mom's Russian, Jewish, Irish descent. And then my dad, it's not fair, but I just sum up as from Texas because European American's not really, like a thing. So, and that kind of encapsulated some interesting ties to Southern politics.
I was going to say, I feel like just saying from Texas, currently living in Texas and growing up here, that's like that says a lot about your
it's its own planet. Maybe someday it'll be recognized as its own ethnicity, but so it's
I don't know if I want that anymore.
He's like, I'm moving.
When I was younger, I was like, yeah, and now I was like, oh god, that sounds bad.
And like tiny Texas too, not like fancy Texas, like right on the border of Oklahoma. So my great uncle, who I never actually met, was the governor of Oklahoma at some point. And I used all his paraphernalia for my illustrious 6th and 7th grade student council runs. So anyway, so I was mainly raised in Minnesota and then later moved to Virginia, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and now New York for the last 16 years. I would say my first awareness of race was really, I remember it very clearly, age 5, kindergarten in Minnesota. I was playing a game with a friend at recess, Camille Erickson. If you're out there listening, thank you for my racial awakening.
Shout out.
And thank you for listening to the show.
Great.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, actually, that'd be the better thing.
That would be pretty amazing, a reunion. We were playing Speak and Spell, which is an old, early 80s game where it's exactly what it sounds like. You try to spell words. And she asked me if I was Black. And I truly did not know. I was the darkest kid in the class, but this is Minnesota. So I truly didn't know. If memory serves, I did tell a few people that day I was Black. So then I fact-checked at home. I went home and asked my mom. I'm sure she was thinking, well, this isn't going to be the doctor of the family, but that's okay. I married one later. She explained to me, of course, that my skin color was brown, by adoption story. She said in the past, people would say, the skin was yellow. We don't say that anymore. Of course, as a 5-year-old, all I heard was yellow. And also it was, the thing that you were taught to say at that time was that race didn't matter. We don't wash over differences like that anyway. But I went back to school. I told everyone I was yellow. And that caused quite a stir in class, just out of like curiosity. And if you look at all of the drawings that my parents saved from that that era, all the stick figures are yellow. So it's really, your understanding of race and culture is set so early.
It's particularly nuanced also.
Exactly. A 5-year-old's awareness of the implications of it and the right things to say. I would say it's too bad that the advent of all those genetic testing kits didn't happen until later, because as an adult taking 23andMe, I was hoping for some sort of big reveal, but there was none. I am, in fact, Asian. And every year, in fact, it does oscillate good. If you've ever taken those tests, they're hilarious because the majority, it comes back as Korean with a small bit of Japanese. And then some years I'm 0% Chinese, and some years I've been high as 16% because the data set changes.
Whoa.
My sisters have fluctuated
really
like that too. Yeah. She's had that same fluctuation.
Yeah. It's fun to take a screenshot. I don't know what I am for. I know in 2022 I was not part Chinese, but maybe this year I'll be back to a little bit Chinese again. But it's always it's actually a great illustration to show people the difference between race and ethnicity. I'll be like, about the construct and about politics and stuff like that. But anyway, so almost all the Asians I knew were adopted in Minnesota. I grew up thinking names like Jonah, Ari, Naomi, Amelia, that these were, Asian names. I would say the comic and strange ways that my background has surfaced over life has been in performance or in public life, certainly relationships later. But I started singing professionally when I was 17 in opera. And what I liked about opera was the baseline is a suspension of disbelief, right? Everyone's singing all the time, usually in a foreign language. So I didn't ever feel like my race was a hindrance in that art form, as it would be in more literal forms, like, straight theater or something like that. Although my first professional performance actually was in a very strange French opera where I played a Chinese teapot. So I'm not really sure like that was great for the movement, but in any case, that the opera is about voice and the music. So I kind of like that. In grad school, I did a bunch of commercials just for extra money. And those were areas where, there were very much casting calls like, we need Asians and Blacks, or something like really just very blatant calls out for that. So I ended up getting a bunch of very, very strange and comic
Black roles.
Black. You may recognize me from my work on Blackish.
Yeah. Actually.
I know. Yeah, exactly. I didn't get any calls back. We're fresh off the boat. But no, the best commercial I ever did was for Chevy Truck. And a friend of mine was at a casting agency. He's like, Jonah, you should call this. So I called. I said, hey, I saw your listing. You need Asians and Blacks. I said, I'm Asian. They're like, great. Why don't you come in tomorrow? Do you have a female friend who's Asian and who's attractive? And I had just done a show with this woman who's beautiful. She's Japanese, Irish, Italian, and she's very small. We made a cute couple in Pirates of Penzance. So I brought her in. We're stage people. We have no idea how to do film. They asked us to pretend like we were getting in a truck and just comment generally how great it is. And so she mimed that she was like pregnant with our future child. I looked like I was about to mount a horse because I have no sense of proportion for a Chevy truck. They started laughing so hard. And I was like, I'm sorry, guys, but like Asians don't buy these.
Yeah. Even in Texas.
Yeah. Like I did the office thing where you break the fourth wall before that was even a thing. I looked straight into the camera. I was like, Asians don't buy these. And so they hired us, and there is a commercial floating out there. They did the same commercial with a black couple and a white couple. We saw them all being filmed over 22 hours. It's the same thing. But anyways, I did one for Buzz headphones and some banks and stuff like that. I would say I feel a little guilty about it now because of, how much more aware we are of that. And actually, Stephanie Sue just gave us incredible interview about Everything Everywhere All at Once and how she, shaped her career. And she's like, I wasn't going to shrink myself into inappropriate cameos of Asian representation. Whereas I would get calls. I got a call from a casting agent once saying, we need someone who looked like they went to MIT. And that's literally the call. And I said, I remember saying that this is racist. How much are we talking?
This is racist. How many zeros?
How many zeros? Yeah.
Is this equity, non-equity? I
was like, I gotta get a certain amount of hours. Does this count towards that? Like,
exactly, $300. They wanted, for a day of something. There was another thing too where I got called in, and they were like, "We need an Asian who can smoke." Of course, I don't smoke because I was a singer, but this is when he was still in the discourse. Kevin Spacey, it was a movie with him, and they're like, "Can you smoke in a scene with Kevin Spacey?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." So anyway, I think another time, that it raised. It was funny too. The Moth, the storytelling competition. It started in New York and then it moved around the country. I did it one night, and the theme was ethnicity. And of the 10 of us, 3 of us did stories about adoption. And I would say it was fascinating because the other 2 were very severe stories, like much like kind of like your last episode, like really like distressing, maybe unfortunate placements or people who got separated and have like this big absence. Where mine was a little bit more lighthearted. I would say most recently too, and we'll get to it in a second. Of course, is the show Baking It. There was an assumed foreignness to the kinds of food I would cook during the casting, where I would get questions like, do you cook ethnic food? And, you're
like, well, I do make a mean bangers and mash.
Exactly.
My last name.
Try my tacos.
my bagels are very doughy, the kind that you want. And so we could talk about that more if you want a little bit later. But I played dumb, and I was like, oh, I think all food is ethnic. What do you mean by that? And then certainly, and then relationships and dating. So like American gay male culture is pretty racist. I am old enough, I'm 43, so I'm lucky enough to have narrowly missed the sort of app dating culture. To have this sort of, you've heard the no fats, no femmes, no Asians trope. So that didn't get to me. But, certainly through college, young adulthood, I just really wished I was white. Just would have been so much easier in my mind. Having no role models in film. I think, I forget which company does like a survey of actors and stuff in Hollywood, and something like 1% or maybe up to 2% of the leads in major movies were Asian, and that's just pretty recent. And I was always suspicious of people if they wanted to date me. Like even with my husband, because he's white, I remember asking him at some point, not casually on a second or third date, what was the race of the person you dated before me? And what was the race of the person before that? Because I just wanted to see.
You were like, I don't want to be the only Asian, but I also don't want to be another in a line.
Right.
Exactly. I know there's a correct answer to this, and thankfully, he had the correct answer.
He got it. All right. Great.
Yeah, it sees all the way down.
50-50.
Yeah.
The only time you want to be 50-50. The only time I want to be average.
Yeah.
Where I did not want the Asian A. So, and then my professional life now. So I'm a fundraiser for nonprofits. I had a surgery on my vocal cords when I was 26 and stopped singing. So I bounced around and did booking agent work and some other things. And now I've been fundraising for the last 17 years. Yeah, there's only a handful of people who look like me. So since the role is adjacent to great wealth, there's all the microaggressions that come with that, touching of the hair, referencing to Asians in the wrong way. So that that's 43 years of how race has come up. So feel free to dig into whatever part you want, or the TV show.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all that. 2, I like how you led off and said it's going to be the shortest intro we ever had, and you gave us a lot. Like it was not the shortest. Trust me. Okay. We've had somebody who was like 10 seconds, I think, which is fine.
Yeah, I was like, we've had some
real short ones.
Let's get into it.
So that's what I was waiting for.
Okay.
I was like, you're giving us a whole bunch of stuff.
I need to give you something to work with. Yeah.
No, for sure. So I think something that where I wanted to start, I guess, was you talked at the beginning about how your connection to Korean culture, really just being Asian American, was pretty much zero.
Yes.
But then as you talked about going through and booking roles for like commercials and doing other work, all of those roles fell into being Asian specifically. Were you always pursuing Asian roles, or were you just like, I'm going after whatever? And then on the other side of that, did playing those roles ever make you feel like, I want to learn more, or I'm just like, give me the check and here I go to the next job?
Yeah, I mean, because opera was my focus, all that stuff was just side money and fun. And so I didn't take it very seriously. And I remember meeting some actors during those things who were very like, oh, this is great. We got the Chevy commercial and this is real work. And for me, it was just sort of like a novelty. And I didn't seek them out. They were the only things I'd get called for. So this is in the old days when people would audition, like in a room, and I would sit in a room and it would just be people who looked like me waiting to go in. So there was an Amtrak commercial. There was, that I didn't get. There was a Staples commercial, all this kind of stuff. Red Lobster. I really wanted the Gillette shaving commercial just because I thought it would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
I know your viewers can't see me, but I didn't shave today and there's not a lot there. But that's why I wanted it. Like it was just
because of the Gillette razor.
That would be funny.
It's such a clean
hilarious.
Yeah.
Exactly. I used it a year ago. I haven't yet to use it since.
Exactly. It lasts for 10 years on me.
It's that good. But I would only get called in with other Asian people. Yeah. And Boston is notoriously racist too, so it may be different in other places. But Boston, I would say, is fine as a student. I went to New England Conservatory for grad school. It was fun because you're in that little bubble. But when I was an adult, bartending and stuff afterwards, I was like, I gotta get out of here. This is pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. If we can jump back, I haven't watched the episode of Baking It where they go into your adoption.
Yes.
But and what it reads on your form is that you are a Korean adoptee, but you're domestic transracial adopted, right?
Is that
That's right.
accurate? Okay, great.
That's
So, this is kind of a unique question. What is it like being, or I guess maybe I shouldn't assume, but have you spent time with other internationally adopted Korean Americans? And what is that like for you being a domestic adoptee in international adoptee spaces? Like, have you had conversations with other adoptees, and like what goes on in your head?
Yeah, I would say yes, absolutely. Well, first, my sister is one, so I always felt like, she had a birth
Fair,
certificate that had a Korean name. I've always felt that she was more interested, but I mean, of course, like she was actually there for some period of her life. And for me, I remember asking about trying to differentiate growing up, and my mom's like, "You can be president, your sister cannot."
That's a great differentiator. That's what my sister and I talk
Interesting.
about all the time. My sister was so pissed off that we couldn't become the president.
Oh yeah,
I remember being pretty pissed off about that too. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Like little brother stuff, I would lord it over her. I would say that, fascinatingly, the people who I've met who have been more attached or more interested in their origin stories actually have been domestic. I had a friend who just completely uprooted his life after having done a pretty similar education as me. And then one day he's like, "I'm moving to Korea." He was also dating almost exclusively white men to exclusively Asian men. I was just like this complete turnaround. He was trying to get me to join groups, not in a bad way, but just like really proselytizing the sort of significance of finding out more about where you came from. And he's moved to Korea and he's there now. I've learned the language. He was like a German major. I mean, he went from straight up, white culture to now like he's there in Korea and not coming back. So yeah. I've actually found that more to be in the cases of domestic adoptees who have interest. I remember getting asked in school all the time, like, "Oh, Jonah, are you going to do Korean camp?" This is like in 4th and 5th grade, the other Koreans I knew. And I was I was like, "No, I want to go to the one that's like outside and you run around." So it was either, I mean, again, my, 4th grade self didn't have a lot of criteria. I just wanted to do what was the most fun,
So I think that experience of being a domestically adopted Korean person, but also being adopted transracially is, in my experience, at least, pretty rare. I haven't heard that story a lot. I think I can think of maybe 2 or 3 people that I know have something similar to that story. But it seems like a few different people who have experienced that. Did you know like a large community of domestically adopted Korean people? I don't know the best way to say that.
It's specifically Korean people or just like
CADs, domestic CADs. Wait, does that make sense? Domestically adopted. CADs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Growing up, I thought it was just, again, like I said, I thought all the Germanic sounding Asian names were normal. Like I remember my friends Ari von Steinberg and Amelia Steinkraus and Naomi Schultz. This of course is Minnesota, so you have a preponderance of like Germanic or Scandinavian names, and I just thought that's what an Asian name was.
Right.
So
you're like, well, it's not Smith, so it must be Asian.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not an Olsen, I'm not an Erickson, but all these German Jewish sounding names, and also Minnesota has a high density of Asians, although it's Hmong, and so I just kind of thought. If you were Asian, you were adopted by white people. That was the experience I knew. And I didn't do a lot of self-reflection about it until later.
Yeah. That was going to be my question is when did you actually do some realization or searching for an Asian or a Korean adoptee community?
Sadly, a little bit too late. I think it took me way longer to get comfortable in my skin, and I obviously I like who I am now, and I like what I can contribute to the world. But I have, unfortunately, like journals from college and stuff like that, where I can see I don't have the self-awareness that I have now to superimpose on those memories. I can see very clearly I want to be white. This community is suffocating me. I need to get out of here. I don't know why. I would say I really didn't meet a lot of Asian people until grad school. And that's not because Boston's a particularly diverse place, but because music conservatories do tend to be. Mm-hmm. And so, and it tends to attract a lot of Asian people, although everyone assumed I was a string player or something like that. I did a gig in Aspen. Talk about so that place is like whiter than the cast of Friends. So I went there and I was signing. It was the Aspen Music Festival, and I was like registering my stuff. And some local journalist was like, "Hey, can we interview you for the local paper?" I said, "Sure." And they said, "Great, go get your instrument." And I was like, "Sure, no problem, got it." I pointed at my throat, and they didn't want to interview me. It didn't fit what the media could consume of like an Asian coming to Aspen for the summer to do whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, you don't
use their
play violin?
voices,
I don't
instead
understand."
Yeah, and
That's
I
wild.
remember one concert I sang in where someone came up to did a piece in German, and a woman came up to me and said, "You sang so beautifully for a moment, I forgot you're Asian." And I was like, because my German was so good. I mean, it was pretty good, but it's absolutely not what she was saying. So in any case, I wouldn't say I have a big community of Asian adoptees that I know. I know a few, and sometimes we'll talk about it. Yes, but I wouldn't. I wish I had a little bit of a bigger community. The groups I knew in Minnesota tended to be very Christian. Tended to be very evangelical Christian. And that was okay at the time because I was raised on Saturdays. On Saturdays, I was a Messianic Jew to appease my mother. And then on Sundays, I went to an evangelical Christian church, with the youth pastor and stuff. But, I don't.
It's like for the pizza. Yeah.
For the pizza.
Tracks.
It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. The church I went to, it had a thing called the All Night Blitz when I was in junior high. And if you paid $35, you got to go to places like the Mall of America and go bowling from like 10 p.m. until 1 a.m, of course, which is an extravagance for a kid that age. All you had to do was go on stage and say that you accepted Christ as your Messiah.
For $35.
$35.
For $35. Christ is my man. Here, let's go bowl.
What a racket.
Go around.
Oh my God.
It was right when the Mall of America opened. Camp Snoopy was a thing, so we all lined up and we're like, I want to ride on that. How hard can it be?
Verified heretic.
I got those sticker, man. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a
great.
documentary. That's a documentary in the making.
That really is.
So this is my the question I'm always so interested in is how does your sexuality play into your understanding of being gay, play into your understanding of being an adoptee, being an Asian? Did one come before the other? Were they kind of like in step with each other? Plus you get all the funness of like evangelical Christian culture and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I'm just curious
super
how that all plays together.
Well,
it's great.
Yeah, exactly. It was so much
we like
fun.
rainbows, right?
I dated everyone. I was prom king. Head of the football team. Head of the football captain. I wore
the helmet on the football team. I don't know.
You owned
I was the special master. Well, what's interesting is I think about all these stories about teens who are bullied. I have some trans family members, and I see that, and I marvel at the fact that I wasn't bullied. And I think I wasn't bullied because Asian men have been emasculated in society since the 1800s, right? So we're not seen as sexual, romantic leads or anything like that. So my white friends who would later come out in high school, they were bullied and teased. And I was obviously gay, but no one ever teased me for it. And I wasn't teased about my race either. I would say actually the violence against me came much later in life as an adult. I've been assaulted on the subway. I've been, had knives pulled on me, all sorts of stuff. But that came in adulthood. As a child, I wasn't bullied. So I think my Asianness was almost like an invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
To anything related to my sexuality. And then, like I said earlier, in gay culture, now I think it's getting a little bit better, but it skews racist and white, and you have to sort of either look like a model or be super skinny or something like that. So that was difficult. That's difficult.
Was the invisibility cloak something of like kind of like a two-way invisibility, like we didn't realize that was happening, like you weren't being bullied for whatever reason, and then it shifted once you got to adulthood? Or were you like, oh, I am sneaking by, I am making it where these other folks are not?
No, I was aware that I was lucky to fly under the radar, because I could see friends who would be in the same theater camps and the choirs and like very public types of stuff and activities. And I was like, somehow I'm not in the crosshairs of this. Things getting yelled at, people shoving in halls. I didn't have any of that. So I guess I was saving it up for adulthood, because unfortunately, it got me on the back end. But I don't think that's uncommon, certainly right now with everything going on in the world. I mean, Indiana University, a couple days ago. So
yeah.
Yeah, you did mention a little bit about anti-Asian hate and just some other things that you were searching on the internet, which led you to, I think, Very Asian, which then led you to our podcast. What kinds of things were you searching for when you looked up Very Asian and podcasts and stuff?
So for your listeners, if you don't know the Very Asian movement, which you should, it originated with this kick-ass journalist, Michelle Lee. I think she's out of St. Louis, and a Karen called in and complained about her and called her very Asian in a way that was meant to be derogatory, and she kind of flipped it and turned it into T-shirts now that I bought and other merchandise. But I would say that I wasn't so much searching it out. It's just there's obviously been a dramatic, rise in anti-Asian hate, and living in New York, I see a lot of it. It's certainly at the beginning of the COVID outbreak. I remember people not moving away from me on the subway, and I was like, "Cool, I get my own chair."
Yeah, you're like social distancing, I guess. Great, proactive.
I was like, "Hey, I could clear out a car by going in and being like, just clear out the whole thing." But and it's hard to tell too, because we've talked a little bit about the intersectionality of sexuality and race, and when I was assaulted on the subway in 2008, people were like, "Oh, is it because you're Asian or because you're gay?" And I was like, I didn't have time to check.
Ask it right. Yeah. You're like, hey, by the way, could you fill out the survey?
Yeah.
Right. And is it one better than the other for being attacked?
Could you help me fill out this hate crime form? If you could check a box.
Yeah. I'll give you a free punch later. Yeah. Come back again. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. But I think it's part of it. I think it's all tied, because again, Asian men are seen as somehow weaker and not as masculine by the all-American idea. So it's funny. So my boss at the New School, Dwight McBride, the president, he wrote a book in the 90s or early 2000s called "Why I Hate Abercrombie and Fitch." And when I remember interviewing with him and saying, this isn't just flattery because it's an interview, but you are a visionary. We talk about, race and sexuality all the time now in mixed company, but you were doing that at a time when you wouldn't. And I remember I had a little job when I was 14. I worked across the hall from Abercrombie and Fitch at the Burger King where I was working. And I really I despised it, but I didn't know why. And it's just because it's, it's so exclusionary.
I worked at an Abercrombie and Fitch in college, and I hated it for that exact reason. I'm like, I don't belong here. And I don't know. Like, it wasn't that the job was terrible. It was like the atmosphere every time you kind of went in, and it felt like people were looking at you or looking at me specifically.
Cologne.
It's terrible. I think they've tried. I think they've done a lot since.
Oh, it's
then,
it's miles away. Yeah.
But
clothes
it's like,
smell like that for weeks after.
But I completely resonate with that feeling, because when I worked there, I 100% felt that, just like, this isn't for me. And I was always questioned, like, why did I get hired here?
It's remarkable that you were, based on what we know about their hiring practices now, and how they looked at people and rated people and stuff like that. It's incredible that you were hired.
Because I really wasn't in shape at that time. I was not like the guy standing in front of the store with his shirt off. I was just folding clothes in the back.
You were like, "Hey, can you go restock those t-shirts?"
I was like folding, just off to the side. They're like, "Don't stand under the light."
Not even good enough to be an extra on a CW.
Don't stand next to that poster either.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
I think I just knew inherently that I could never get a job at a place like that, and I think that made me annoyed. And as we know now, of course, it wasn't something you wanted to be a part of, but that still exists. And I think certainly after the baking TV show and some of the interviews I had during that process, the notion of all American kept coming up, and I was like, okay, cool. If we get on this, then we can be let's make a point of trying to disrupt that notion to the weekend. And to the credit of the executive producer, which is Amy Poehler, she allowed us that space to talk about it very, very openly. I was stunned at the stuff she left in. I thought for sure they wouldn't keep any of the stuff about sexuality or even necessarily adoption and mixed race families and chosen family. I was like, this is all going to get cut. It doesn't fit the cozy holiday TV baking show, but it all made it. So I was really, really happy to see that.
So that was something I wanted to ask about this show, because I think, especially right now, there's two twins who are on The Amazing Race who are Korean adoptees and got reunited. And like they've been sharing that story on that show, and I feel like you see that a lot on competition reality shows. There's an Asian adoptee who finds their way every like 4 seasons, and then they share a little bit about that. And I think that it's like, and then the stories, I don't know, are just different, and they get told differently. My wife has made me watch a lot of Big Brother, and I feel like I've seen a few adoptees come on through there, and I thought the ways that their stories were told was very interesting. And so you said that like they gave you a lot of space to share. Did you feel like in the moment that was what was happening, or did you feel like they were trying to pull that out of you specifically, whether you wanted to talk about it or not?
No, they really didn't pull it, because in fact, like I was joking earlier, when they're like, do you make ethnic food and stuff like that? At some point, it was pretty far into the casting, I said, look, if I can't go on this, if you want me to misrepresent myself, like I can't keep up I can't use matcha and everything, right? Like I'm gonna run out of party tricks. If you want me to be an Asian baker,
also that's Japanese, y'all.
Yeah, I know.
I know. But I'm like, if they want like pan Asian baking, I'm good for like 1 episode.
You want me to make a kimchi cake?
Exactly.
I hear kimchi is a trending right now. Can you make something with that?
Really delicious gingerbread. But so they wanted our story. They didn't draw it out, and there were definitely, they would ask in advance, like, can we talk about this? And I would say, we can talk about this. I don't want to dwell on it, but it is part of the story. And they were like, got it. And so what you can't see when you're watching the show, there's about 100 people on set filming us, and there's people prompting us with things like, why don't you talk about such and such? And there's joke writers behind our heads, actually, for at that time, it was the host, Maya and Andy, to play off of, and they knew stuff about our bio coming in before they met us. So I felt very, very safe. I felt really respected. And again, I really thought there's just no way they're going to allow like the couple, because like you've said, a lot of the adoption stories are not very interesting on these types of shows, because they have either one trope. It's either the white family saved this child from, a life of destitution or something like that, or there's been some sort of open relationship with the family, and it's all
beautiful
like,
reunification, and
and life's a lot messier than that, and they allowed us to live in that space, and I was really glad. But it does speak to the fascination. To your point, every 4 seasons or every 3 seasons, there's an adoption story. People are fascinated by it. I've never understood it. Why it's so curious, why it's so opaque or not legible to the public, of like, it's a process, it happens, it's pretty normal, but there's like some sort of fantastical quality about it to some people. They just want to know everything,
So my question was going on the surprising fact that you are surprised about certain things. I read that you actually were surprised that you got on the show because you applied as a joke.
Actually. So we were the first season, so nothing had been established, and the original casting call was just online. It didn't say NBC, it didn't say Maya Rudolph or anything. We didn't find out about that stuff until we got there. It was just like, it looked like Papyrus, that horrible font in Avatar. It's a Papyrus, and it's like, bakers and your helpers apply for this TV show. So my husband sent it to me on Instagram, and he sent it with the meme of David and Moira from Schitt's Creek fighting in the kitchen over folding in the cheese.
Nice.
And he just sent it with that, and he didn't say anything. And so I was at work on my lunch break, and I just filled out the form online, and then I filmed a little video at my desk, just straight to camera one. And I was like, "Hey, I'm a diversity bingo card. I've seen a lot of these things. I was like, I can give you what you need. I can look dead-eyed into camera one and say I didn't come here to make friends. I can cry on command. I can cook. I'm all these things." And a casting agent called in 3 hours, and I was like, "No way, this is a scam. Like, what do you want? My social security number? Like, what
Right.
do you want? Like, what,
Like, you're the free middle tile. We want you here."
I was like, "What is this?" And then, 4 months of testing on Zoom and baking and doing their challenges, talking to producers from like The Amazing Race, because it's an NBC property. We had to get interviewed by a bunch of people, and all that kind of stuff. They were like, "You're on. See you next week." We only had like a week and a half.
Great.
All right, great. You're in.
It was crazy. Yep.
No, I really like that. Wait, so you had to do baking challenge before you even got on the show as well?
Yeah. So first they had to see like pictures of like 30 or 40 things I'd made at one point.
Oh, okay.
And then they had to see us, or they would send them like 5 or 6 videos, like make a pie in this one, make a 3-tiered cake in this one, that kind of stuff, and tell us why. So I think, and I picked up on this pretty early on just because I watch a lot of reality TV. I was like, "Patrick, no one at home can eat it." To my husband, Patrick, I was like, "No one can eat it. The why is going to be more important than the what."
Right.
And that's what this show is. And so one of the challenges, when there were 18 teams left and they were going to choose 9 of us, the challenge was to make a shoe pastry. And then the flavors had to represent you as a family, as a couple. I was like, "I got this." So I made it. I was like,
Matcha.
Watch me sell. No, I saved that for the gingerbread house. I wasn't going to use all my tricks at once. So I did we did it. What did we do for the flavor? So we did apples and honey for Rosh Hashanah. I dyed them red and green. I found some like Christmas tree online. It was in July, but I decorated our house for the holidays so that they could see what it would look like. My husband was dying because he's like one of those people he gets embarrassed if you look at him. So he's like, "This is..."
You decorated in July.
Yeah, I had stockings hanging in our kitchen over open flames, and he was like, "This is too much." I said, No. You need to put the image in their head that they can see us on the TV. Yep. I would wear pink. I purposely wore pink. He wore blue. I made him wear blue all the time. I said, they want characters. They want, but to their credit, they did allow us to have to share the complexity of the stories. Yeah. And in one of the episodes, actually, unbeknownst to me, they had approached my mom once I was cast to write a letter about the adoption and read it. And that was a total surprise. So that is producer magic to try to get all the feels. Like Maya Rudolph starts crying. It's all, that stuff is all kind of real.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, well, I want to ask about it. I think the letter is well, I do want to ask about it. Like you said, it was obviously a complete surprise. Obviously that made it into the show. And like you said, they kept a lot of what you were able to share in, which surprised you. And I'm wondering, kind of, now that I believe the show is that season run its course, or is it still air? I can't remember when the format
December
says it's still running, but I'm like,
are there going to be any spoiler alerts?
It was a long time.
No, it's fine.
We're incredibly behind the time.
Perfect. Okay,
like they've already done season 2, and he was on season 1.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I guess my question is, since they were able to do all of that, and I feel like we've touched on a little bit that you sharing that story and really having a big community of adoptees was not necessarily in your purview or something that you were thinking about or pursuing a lot. Since this season has aired and this story has come out, and you've seen what have you seen from a reaction standpoint? Are there people who are really in the way that you were surprised at kind of the things that you would share specifically from an adoptee standpoint? And then also from your queer identity and that experience, like especially sharing all of those things. What has that reaction been?
Going into it, I was like, "Look, Patrick, again, my husband's name is Patrick. I don't want to confuse your listeners."
No, you're good.
When you were unconscious and we did that show together.
Patrick blacked out for a month.
Exactly. You portrayed my Irish American husband on TV. So I would say I was very prepared for anything in terms of positive notes and negative notes. And, they're like, people were like, don't read social media, but of course I had to. It's like,
Obviously.
Of course I'm going to. Yeah, exactly. I also knew, and this was something my husband, I think, didn't anticipate, but I anticipated that I would be in the crosshairs and he would not, in a way, not just because of the adoption story, but just because, of my dual faith and all that stuff. So we got everything from, we've had notes from people saying we're in a very small community and my kids are, in the, I'm pretty sure my kids are in the closet, and it was just really amazing to see a family like yours. And I'm a mom. This one was like amazing. This family was like, I'm just a mom. I want my kids to be happy, and to see you too was really great. There was one particularly angry viewer because of the way I was raised. I said I went to Messianic Jewish churches. Now, if you know what that is, those are people who are raised Jewish and later accept Christ as the Messiah. And so this viewer had a lot to say to NBC, not so much as me.
Sure.
But being like, promoting that viewpoint of Judaism.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. This is not really Jewish. How dare you? This is disgusting. That kind of thing. So yeah, it's been a wide range, not much about race, more about sexuality. I knew what I said to my husband at the time is like, us going on this show will be a provocation for basically the demographic they're aiming this show at, which is middle America. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not Jeff Foxworthy. I'm not that relatable. I'm not that relatable to that wide middle swath where I'm from. Strangely, it's so funny because I seem like I'm not from there. But
you don't talk about Hot Pockets or here's a sign or have puppets where you make jokes on stage
with a great strawberry coulis. So because again, you'll laugh. In the Midwest, there's a lot of like casseroles and Jello molds and stuff. Because like, if you had to make a regional dish, what would it be? I'm like Jello mold.
Have you heard of a casserole? I don't know.
I know. I'm like, I don't know.
I put beans in it. I think that makes it Mexican.
and carrots make it a salad. So the range of stuff, most of it's been positive. Every now and then one will trickle in, and it's fascinating to me that people that tweet at TV shows. Is that a hobby?
I do that sometimes, and I'm like, why am I doing this? But I don't know how else to be heard. I'm like, I'm certainly not going to mail in a letter to their office. That would require me to do so much more research. We have Twitter.
and response.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, like to write to NBC. I saw one that was like, oh Jesus, I'm going to take a shot every time Jonah has to go on one of his journeys, with an eye roll and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm just telling my story. And also, you'll be drunk. You will be smashed by the halfway through episode 1. I laid it out there.
Far gone. Further than any journey.
Maybe that was his goal all along.
Yeah. That's right. I wanted you, young lady in Kansas, to get smashed and angry and hate watch Baking It, a holiday Christmas show with Maya Rudolph.
With the catchiest jingle in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, with Andy Samberg. It was very fun to bounce jokes off of. I forgot how dirty his sense of humor was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know. I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine recently, but but you remember the Lonely Island Boys, and you're like,
Lonely Island. I was gonna say,
or like this is the man who wrote Dick in a Box. That is his last.
I forgot that you never stop, never stopping. Yeah.
Never stop, never stopping.
Oh, geez. Yeah. That's incredible. So, okay. I wanted to ask you, you wrote on just to refresh your own memory, because it's been a minute, on your Why Come On the podcast, you wrote, I've seen firsthand how empowering it is for other adopted Asians, especially those in the queer community, to see others like them. I want to inspire others to be themselves unapologetically and fulsomely. Before I get to maybe the question directly out of that, what was the moment for you where you found like the initial point of self-love, and then what was the moment when you found like whole self-love for like every part of you? Because for me, I think there was a moment where like I loved a part of myself fully and earnestly and wonderfully, and then 2020, starting the podcast, all those other things, I found this whole other part of myself that I had to learn to love, and I had to. So it's really not. It's not for me been until like the past 6 months where I've been like, I love me wholly, completely for every bit of me. So I guess I'm asking, was it a step-by-step kind of journey, or was it kind of all at once? But like, what was the moment that you found that self-love and that self-acceptance?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think it would be easy to say, oh, it was when I was 30, when I turned 30, or when I turned 40 or something like that. I think it varies, honestly, day to day, depending on what context I'm in, So again, like I said, work can be a joyous place, but I'm also adjacent to difficult conversations sometimes, and I don't always walk away from those loving myself. There's some contexts. Actually, Leah DeLauria, the great, comedian and producer and stuff like that. She has this. I'll get to the point in a second. She has this great
take me on that journey
going up. Yes. Take a shot. So she is doing a documentary about why there's so few lesbian bars left in the United States and why that's detrimental to that community. And she's like, you do need a place to. Everybody wants a place they can go and let their shoulders relax. Mm-hmm. And I think I didn't really get to that place just generally until I moved to New York. So that was 16 years ago. And then I think I don't remember who said it, but it was maybe another comedian who was like, I've gotten too old to constrict myself to make other people comfortable. And that was like a really empowering thing for me to think about. And I was like, oh yeah, I've aged out of wunderkind, even though of course we all look very young to white people. That makes me laugh, actually, when we always get complimented. Whenever I get complimented for looking young, and it's usually a white person, I usually say, like, the majority of the people on this planet live in Asia. So actually, I look average. Yeah. You look old.
You might hold all the power in this country, but let me tell you, you age horribly.
I look like most of the people on this planet.
Cosmic karma.
Yes. So I think it fluctuates back and forth, but I would say probably moving to New York because I would joke with my friends that, it was the least interesting thing to look at on the subway. But, if I were a religious person now, my first year in New York was just outrageously bad. It was a tornado landed in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. I don't know if you remember that in 2007. Or tornado landed. I got bed bugs. I got assaulted on the subway. This is the first 8 months of living here, but I was still like, I've made it.
What doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Exactly. There is a resilience factor to it, though. Too, I think where I found a lot. I was prouder of who I was, having to go through a bunch of, jump through a bunch of hoops, whether they were racial or whether they were about my sexuality. I was like, okay, I can get through this. I can be self-sufficient and move in this world and take up space and, buck the trend of certain stereotypes.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question is, what's the thing that you celebrate the most when you see like that threshold for adopted Asians, queer folk, queer adoptees, whatever? Like for me, I think it's when people find that moment of self-love, because I think whether you're in like just going through wrestling with sexuality or gender identity, whether you're wrestling with, race or those kinds of things, ability or however, there's just so much to unpack. And when people, especially in marginalized communities, find an avenue to love themselves, truly love themselves, I just think that's the most wonderful thing in the world, even if it's, it's only one step and not, like the fullness yet. But what's the thing that you celebrate the most for the communities that you're particularly passionate about?
I love that I get to, and I was saying this actually with some people, you probably heard of the Asian Leadership Collective. They're based out of the UK and they celebrate food and culture and Asian lives in England. But when I was doing a cooking thing with them, I was like, I love that I get to live in such a big world. Most people's worlds are very tiny. Most people stay close to where they grew up. And I'm not trying to pass judgment, but I know for me, I have had a fascinating life because of all these things. And I love it. And that's and I can authentically tap into my mom's Jewish heritage and my dad's Southern heritage and my time in New York and being Korean and Japanese and sometimes Chinese, according to 23andMe. Depends on the year. But like, not many people actually get to have a world that encompasses all that. I just get to keep adding to it, and that's a very special thing. And that's what I try to tell some people who are in a similar situation. It's like, you get 2 worlds to play in. You get 2 planets. How great is that? Most people only get 1, or they get a slice of 1. Why would you want that? Why wouldn't you want access to everything?
Yeah, to instead flip the script of, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. It's like, no, you belong everywhere in multiple universes. Like, so many things are yours because of who you are. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
right. I can have, when I post my menorah on with the Christmas tree blurred in the background with the little mensch on a bench on top of the Christmas tree. It's like I get to live all these stories, and most people have like I said, like a box, a container of what they're used to. They don't have to, but they choose to have that experience. I don't have the choice, but now I'm happy to exist in all these spaces all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. How about that? That's it.
I was trying not to, but we went there. It's fine. It's fine. I was like, is that too on the nose? But you went there, so the guest is always right.
The guest is always right. If we have one rule on the show, it's the guest is always right.
Is it?
And unfortunately, we actually, because this was a last minute scheduling, we didn't have time to send you a snack too. So normally we would go into.
So you have to come back on the show now.
So yes,
yes, I have to come back. Well, like I said, you can choose anything from the show. So I cooked everything from noodle kugel to gingerbread matcha. You're not together, but one thing that was cut because Andy Samberg is obviously Jewish, and Maya Rudolph comes from a Jewish background. And the first dish I make on it is noodle kugel, which if you haven't had it, it is a strange concept, sweet noodles. But, I said to them, I was like, I guess it's pretty daring and really stupid of me to make something that's not photogenic, for a first thing. And, they pretended to barf all over our workstation and everything because it's just not everyone's favorite.
I can literally picture them doing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could tell you lots of funny stories.
Well, we definitely have to have you back on the show for some food or just for another episode, because I did not realize we've been talking to you for an hour. I thought it'd been about 30 minutes, maybe. I love.
It's been such a delight.
Yeah, it's been an absolutely incredible conversation. I couldn't have asked for a better one coming back from our first guest. Seriously.
Thank you. And I really mean it when I said, like, I wish I had known people, guys like you growing up. It would have made, so much of that self-actualization and just fun a lot earlier in my life. But, eventually I got there. It just took me a few decades.
Yeah, we're here now.
And now we're here. And now we're here.
That's right. Come to New York, do a show. You'll have a very big audience. There's obviously a big Asian adoptee audience here, and there's lots of groups. And I bet you'd be a mega hit.
Well,
we would love to.
Definitely planning on
Definitely want to make that happen for sure.
At some point in the future. It's a plan for the future. Jonah, where can people find you and connect with you online and be friends with you if you want friends? If you don't, fine.
I do want friends / acquaintances. I have this impenetrable handle on Instagram. It's Nigh Jonah. You'll never find it. I've got tens of followers. Somebody asked me if I blew up after the show. I was like, I did not. TikTok is the same. That one I have a few more, and there's actually snippets from the show. TikTok is actually if you just want to see what the show is like, it's super cute, and I have a bunch of 30-second clips on there. So that's also Nigh Jonah. So pretty easy to find. It's a rare name, as it turns out.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I think that is it. I don't know how to wrap it because I don't know how the rest of the episode is going to go. We're going to take a break. That's the thing.
Take a break.
We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to come back with a food and or drink item. Who knows? It's always a surprise.
Who knows?
Yeah. Thanks again, Jonah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh. Thank God that wasn't recorded.
Wow. Yeah. Yikes. Okay, everyone, welcome back. This is a food portion without Jonah. We had to due to scheduling things, we weren't able to ship him food at some point, so we'll have him back on for our food or something. I don't know, but it's just the three of us again. Hello, Nathan.
How dare you
explain-
steal Nathan's
That's
food
my intro.
portion intro?
No.
You're right.
hey,
You're right.
it's not
But you know
mine
what?
intro.
I just realized we didn't explain at the top of the episode what Janchi
We
means
did not.
in
I know.
Korean. So Nathan, will you explain
I
that
thought
to our
about that.
listeners who are now like an hour and a half in?
Sure. Janchi is we're using it as a celebration or feasting of our Korean heritage, and right now is the feasting part. We're feasting on
Hooray!
a food, a snack, a Korean snack. This
Yeah,
one
what are we
made
eating?
by Lotte.
Lotte.
All I know is that it's got a big pineapple on the front of it, and it looks like a cookie. And I like pineapples, and I like cookies, so I think it's gonna be good.
Do you have the box? Can you hold up the box?
I have
where
the
I
do you
didn't
get
know
this
that it was-
pineapple.
I didn't know that it was pineapple flavored because the
Oh.
packaging is just
It
green.
looks like a
but
donut.
It's very clear
Oh, my
to me
bad.
on the
Yeah.
box. Yeah.
It doesn't
So
show
it's-
much, but
It looks
The
like a
Hangul just says-
pineapple cream thing.
yeah.
Oh,
pretty much.
okay.
Like
No.
the wafer, or not the wafer, but the Oreo cookies, but not Oreo.
Yeah, pineapple flavored. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Oh, that's exactly what they look like.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, they smell good.
Ooh, they really smell good. I'm giving it a 5
Huh.
on smell.
Interesting.
Oh, I don't like that I can't just easily break it in half. Oh, there we go.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, I was.
Yep.
Interesting.
It's very pineapple-y
Maybe too much pineapple.
in like an artificial way, but not in a way that's like bad. I don't know.
It's not.
This is
I'm
hard.
getting a lot of cookie taste too.
The cookie
I
is
like
good.
the cookie taste.
Oh, the pineapple might be bad.
The pineapple, I think, is the bad part of this thing.
I'm eating just a pineapple.
Also, pineapple.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm eating a pineapple, or like a pina colada flavored
Mhm.
snow cone. If
That's
it was
what
a
it is.
cream flavor, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
Definitely has some pina colada tones to it.
There's 6 cookies in a single package.
And then there
They're-
was
Oreo sized, I'm going to say.
A little smaller than Oreos, I think.
yeah.
Little
So
bit.
there's 6 cookies in a package, and then there was at least 8 packages in a box. So yeah,
Not a lot of cookies.
48 cookies.
it's a lot of cookies. I know. So
That is good math.
I'm happy
Way
when
to
I
go.
can just buy a box and then share the packages with you guys. It makes it easier. But I don't know. I like it. I mean, I think it's better than some Girl Scout cookies for sure.
Wow. Hot take.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know. Maybe it's because I've had way too many Girl Scout cookies over the years and I'm just done with them.
Wow.
But they do
Interesting.
come out
That
with
is
new
a
Girl
hot
Scout
take.
cookies. You know, so
Who buys the new
you know,
ones?
sorry if any Girl Scouts are listening right now. No offense.
How many Girl Scouts are listening? I want to know.
Yeah. Call in.
Call
972-677-8867. Say, I'm a Girl Scout and I'm offended. Or
Is there
I'm
a
Girl Scout.
Korean
and
Girl
I'm
Scout
not.
organization? I wonder.
Oh, like the equivalent of a Girl Scout?
Yeah,
Girl
in
Scouts of
Korea.
America, but Girl Scout Daehanmingguk or whatever. So the box just says pineapple, which I didn't know. I don't know what losein is. That's what the cookie is called. And then there's a little Korean on the top that says Sangkum dalkom, which I think dalkom is sweet, if I remember correctly. And then Lotte sende. So I don't know if Lotte, if I'm just reading that in the Korean, but it's not how I expected it to be spelt. And then sand, maybe? I don't know. I hate not having a vocabulary, but I'm too lazy to look it up. In the interest of brevity, I know that you've been with us for a long time, listeners. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, which honestly feels a little high.
Oh, yeah.
I think the cookie itself is good. It's a nice biscuity kind of texture. The pineapple cream filling. I haven't tried to break it apart and just eat it on its own like you would an Oreo, like some might with an Oreo. I don't know if that's like heresy for some Oreo eaters, but it does have that pina colada flavor. I generally like pineapple and coconut and like tropical fruits. However, when I get artificial flavors, I tend to have like I start to have like an allergic reaction, and if I have too much of it, it's like not a good deal. And I'm already getting some of that having eaten 3 cookies, which again is half of the package. So I don't even know that I could finish. I mean, I probably could finish it, but then I'd like really kind of have that like itchy feeling. So it's not bad. It's not great. I'm going to give it a 3. You know, I'm going to give it 2.75. It's above average. It's above middle ground, but just barely. So 2.75 for me.
Right in the middle. I'm going to go back to your 3 for my rating. I like it enough that it's I think it's 3 out of 5 for me. It's not the smell at first I thought was great, so I was giving that a 5. But I don't know. I think it's
initial smell rating 5.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So yeah, I'll stick with the 3. But you're right. I don't feel like I want to, I don't know, eat all 6 cookies like as fast as possible kind of a thing. So.
I did just jump into a 4th cookie because I hate myself.
I ate all mine.
Wow.
I'm going to give it a 2.5. So going in slightly on the bottom side. Yeah. Only because I'm going to go straight down the middle with it. I wish that it was I wish it was a vanilla flavor. I wish it was a little bit bigger. It could also be a chocolate flavor.
So just not a pineapple flavor then?
It's just not a pineapple flavor. That's basically what I'm saying.
Nathan, you chose poorly.
Well, I have other chocolate items.
It's like sitting on the back of my tongue, and maybe it's because I ate all 6. Just one after the other.
I mean, I can't always buy chocolate and vanilla, guys. You know, so
why not?
I gotta mix in a few of the flavors.
We can do repeats. I'm happy to do Choco Pie episode 1000.
Wow,
version 1005.
We can do a multiple Choco Pie tasting because there's like, I swear, 6 or 7 flavors now that I've seen.
Yeah, there's a lot of flavors out there.
Yeah,
there is a lot of flavors out there.
But well, I also want to say before we end the episode, thank you to Kevin Etheridge. You sent us a little gift before Christmas last year, and now that we have finally recorded some episodes, I just wanted to thank you. He sent us this cute little ornament that's wood carving of
it's
the Janchi Show logo.
It is awesome.
And then
thank
the
you,
Korean flag
Next
on the
year,
other side,
when I have a tree, I'm going to be very excited to put it on said tree.
True.
Yeah, very
Agreed.
appreciative. Thank you so much for listening and for sending us this. So shout out to Kevin for that. But yeah, well, on to other things, guys. On to a new year, 2023.
Roll us out, Nathan, since Kathan.
Yep, since Kathan stole your thunder.
I am combined. Yes, stole my thunder. You can find us everywhere on the internet that we want to be found at the Janchi Show. You can leave us a voicemail, 972-677-8867. You can find us on Facebook after Marketplace.
What
party?
You don't even remember what the group is called?
It's the after party. I was thinking of Marketplace.
You can find us on the black market.
Yeah, you can find us on the Facebook
party.
black market.
The night market.
You can find us on our website, janchishow.com. I think our merch is still working. We do not have the new merch up yet, but we will once we figure out that issue.
I'm trying my hardest, I promise.
Yeah. If not, I'm tempted to move on to a new service, but we'll see.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
Out on air.
Sorry. Well, I'm not blasting the company that we're using yet, so I didn't say their name.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, where can people find you, Nathan?
They can find me in Nowak. Yes. And then Kathan at Instagram.
I bet Kathan is available.
Kathan might be. It's not a bad name, Kathan.
It's not great. No offense to any Kathans out there.
100%. So you don't say that. Somebody's got that name.
Someone's listening.
Somebody's got that name.
Whatever. You know what? If we get a new listener because someone else said, like, dude, they said your name sucks, and I'd be like, you know what? I take it.
I would take that listener as well. And any feedback that he had. Or they.
Yeah.
Any feedback that they had.
Yeah.
True.
Where can they find you?
What about you, Kapatrick?
I asked you first. At Patrick in the World on the interworlds.
All right. All the places he wants to be found on the internet.
Living my best life.
Yeah, you can find him on LinkedIn as Patrick Armstrong. He's the Asian one. It's been a while since we had that bit.
I don't know if I'm
going to keep it going for 2023, but I just wanted to bring it back for just a touch of
one more time at least. You can have one more.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm at KJ Relke wherever I want to be found on the internet. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Until next week, Janchi. Heyo!